Ooh, this is a controversial video, and I guarantee 98% of you guys will hate me by the end of this video. Today I'm talking about, is Isekai a bad genre? Right now, I want to say it right now, I don't think it's a bad genre. And I'll explain it throughout this video. First of all, what is an Isekai? So I got this Oxford Dictionary of it, a Japanese genre of science or fantasy fiction featuring a protagonist who is transported to or reincarnated in a different, strange, or unfamiliar world. Also can be transported to an anime, manga, video games, etc. In this genre, they frequently have a modifier. So they frequently do have a modifier, but sometimes they don't. So like, don't worry about it. This is more of a trope. If you want the literal translation for isekai, it's another world, other world, different world. I'm going to be referring as another world because it's just what I'm used to. So what is an isekai? What counts as it? Mushoku Tensei, Re:Zero, Amethyst and Shadow, and Digimon. Some people might be confused with Digimon, but technically the kids get transported to a digital world, which is unfamiliar from their old world. So this is technically an isekai, so it's not really controversial. And yeah, I think the best two examples are Mushoku Tensei and Re:Zero because they tackle two different sides of how the characters get to the other world. Like Mushoku Tensei, he gets reincarnated as a baby in a different world that he's unfamiliar with, while Subaru over here is transported. His whole body just gets blipped to another world. So there's two different ways to for someone to be isekai. And for Oxford Dictionary, they said a Japanese genre. It originally kind of came from the Japanese genre, but it's not really tied down to the Japanese genre or Japanese literature. It can be also used for, it's basically a universal genre, what I'm going to say. It can be used in Western media like Chronicles of Narnia. Don't think that's controversial. The kids get transported to a different world by walking in a wardrobe. I don't know how, but it just happens. So that is an isekai. But isn't an isekai that people think is an isekai? Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? I've heard people say this is an isekai. I don't know why. They're just stupid, but it does happen. People get confused. This isn't an isekai because he already lives in this fantasy world. His whole worldview is this fantasy world. Well, technically he's a reincarnated thing, blah, 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 blah. It's spoiler. Don't worry about it. Just make it easier. He's already in this world. What probably a better example for what I was going to say is the Misfit of the Demon King, because this is an isekai world. Yes, you can see reincarnated, but he's not really reincarnated to a different world. He's just reincarnated 2,000 years in the future from his world that he already lives in. So technically, this is an isekai. He's just reincarnated in a different time. Goblin Slayer isn't an isekai. It's just a D&D fantasy world. That's definitely not an isekai. And banished from Hero's Party. That is an isekai. He just got banished. Although there's some isekai they use the banish from Hero's Party as a... They just combine both of them. But this itself is an isekai. He just lives in a fantasy world that he just got banished. Where he gets banished from the Hero's Party. And this is also not an isekai. Seventh Time Loop. The villainess enjoys a carefree life married to her worst enemy. I mentioned this because this is probably a good example. This girl is originally from this world, but she's just going back in time to a certain point. I don't think that really counts as an isekai because she still lives in the same world. But this is like the seventh time she's living in that same world at a certain point. And I want to mention this because the villainess genre sometimes gets confused. Like, the villainess genre is also used in isekai genre. Like, My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Leads to Doom. This is like this anime is kind of like the thing that started the villainess genre. I don't like it. I'm not gonna go deep to it, but this isn't definitely Isekai because she's transported to an Otome game, a different world that she is familiar with, but she's not in the same world she was. So this is definitely an Isekai. In total, what I'm trying to say here is Isekai can share elements with different genres. Some tropes that is used in Isekai can also be used in different literature. As you can see with the villainess genre, and also Misfits of Demon King can use reincarnation, but not be an Isekai. I think I already said that. Reincarnation does not always mean Isekai. Isekai does not mean every story set in the JRPG fantasy world. This is pretty important because, as the Oxford Dictionary said, they can be in science fiction world or anime, manga, video game. They just have to be transported / reincarnated to a different place, a different world. Not very controversial. And you see, Harry Potter. I want to bring him up. Why? Okay. First of all, no, this is not. I'm not bringing him up saying that he's from Isekai. Okay, this is just not what I mean. I brought this up just because in the world there are like the normal thing that we live in, and there's a separate place where there's magicians, magicians doing magic, wizards, blah 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 blah. But in this setting, everything is in the same world, but in like Hogwarts, it's technically just a hidden place that people don't know. So it's still in the same world. What I'm trying to get as. So Harry Potter, not an Isekai. Back to the Future is not an Isekai. Although they go to a different timeline, they're technically in the same world. So these two are not an Isekai. And this is where I want to talk about the video game genre. Because is video game genre an Isekai? For me, I don't think it is. There are some, but let's just go through all the video game genres that I put in. So first one, Shangri-La Frontiers. This is not an Isekai for me. Yes, the entire world that he goes to a different world that he's unfamiliar with, but it's technically a video game that's created in the same world. He's just playing a video game. It's like me, what's a good example? Pretend me playing Resident Evil Village. Am I really transported to a different world because I'm playing a video game? Like, I don't think so. And yeah, it's everybody in this world. It's completely AI. Like, it's like a different world, but it's not really. I'm gonna say this. I don't think video game genre should be counted as a Isekai genre just because he's technically not really. It's really difficult to explain this one, especially just because it can be technically as an Isekai, but I'm gonna say his physical body has to be in a different place to count as an Isekai. So technically, his physical body is still in the normal world. So that isn't an Isekai. So anytime the body is in the original world, but they just transported to it, but they view something that's a different world, I wouldn't really count as an Isekai. Sword Art Online, same deal. Not really an Isekai. It's a video game genre. People might argue about Alicization. This is a difficult one. This is like a in-between. Maybe it is Isekai, maybe he's not. Though his body is still in the physical world, he's transported to a new world that he can't really escape in. It's a new world that's functioning, completely different from his own world. It's really difficult to explain. Probably won't count it as an Isekai, but it has Isekai elements, which is why video game genres is like especially VR and VR video games. They're very. They have Isekai elements. They can be classified as Isekai elements, and even Japanese people classify Sword Art Online as an Isekai. I think what's it called again? There's a mobile game that recently came out only in Japan where it's they put Sword Art Online and Shangri-La Frontier as an Isekai. I think it's like Isekai, I think it's called. Yeah, Isekai. This is where it gets confusing because you can see Shangri-La Frontiers and uh, Sword Art Online classified as an Isekai with them. This is where it's really difficult to just like separate them. It's confusing, man. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna put my foot down. I won't really count it as an isekai, like video game genre as an isekai. But this in general, this is technically in a video game, but his whole body gets transported to it, so he's no longer in the physical world. He's not in his normal world. He's completely transported to this world. So I would consider this an isekai. I think also Local Horizon is an isekai. Technically, they're playing a like an MMO game, and then they now I haven't really watched Local Horizon, okay, but from what I know, the whole player base just got transported to the video game, and they cannot get out, and they're no longer in the physical world. So I would count this as an isekai. Very confusing. And that's honestly on them because it's a genre that's not very concrete, I would say. So sometimes you get confused with this as an isekai. But what is an isekai? I might as well just make it easier for myself. I want to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an isekai for me. It's a weird one, but like they have a lot of isekai elements. I mean, like some story arcs are straight up in isekai. For Pharaoh's Memory arc, this is a difficult one. I would say it's an isekai because they get transported to a new place, a different world. So this is technically an isekai. What I do know, GX Dimensional World is definitely an isekai. They just got transported to a dimensional world that they're not familiar with. So that's definitely an isekai. And Arc 5, that's straight up an isekai. So, like, yeah. 4 different worlds, different from each other. That's definitely an isekai. Like, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be classified as an isekai, but you have to be careful. You can say Yu-Gi-Oh! Arcs or Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 is an isekai. So, yeah, this is all going to, I think, just... I put it in the wrong place. They should be late. I should be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! In a different place, but, like, yeah, don't worry about it. So, basically, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has some isekai elements in it, and some things are actually isekai. So like, there. Oh, you know how unprepared I am. Okay, I'm not prepared. So yeah, just basically, Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be considered as an isekai in some ways, and you see this one. This is what I meant to be talking about first before Yu-Gi-Oh! Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf. Why I brought this up is honestly because of my previous statement on Shangri-La Frontiers and like the video game genre. So in this story, the main character sleeps and gets transported to a different world, but I'm not too sure if his physical body leaves the world, like with he leaves Earth and goes to a fantasy world. I'm not too sure about it. This is like an in between where it is an isekai and also it isn't really isekai by how I framed it, because we don't know if his full body gets transported. That's what I'm trying to say. But he interacts with the other world. He's able to bring it in. So technically, this is an isekai. And by the same reason why I have to talk about Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz. By my definition, I said they have to leave this physical world to count as an isekai. So if I don't count this as an isekai because he's technically not leaving the physical world and he's just going to a different world through virtual means, technically these two, what people say it's an isekai, isn't really an isekai, because technically it's a dream where they're dreaming of this situation, and that goes in detail is if dreams count as isekai. I'm not very comfortable to call dreams an isekai. I know, yeah, these two, they go to a completely different world that they're not familiar with. They're traveling around, but technically they're just sleeping in the physical world. Because if I have to classify these two as an isekai, then I have to classify Franny's feet as an isekai, and I don't really feel comfortable saying Franny's feet is an isekai. And if you don't know Franny's feet, she steps into her feet, and now she's in a different place, her own fictional world, and this is where I have a problem with the definition of it. Let's go into it. Now, this is where it gets very, very messy, and this is where, ooh, I'm gonna have so much trouble. If we have to consider Freddy's feet as an isekai, we have to, which, I don't want to call it an isekai, but it might be an isekai from the definition. So I got I went to dictionary.com. There's many different words for world, and this is where everything I say is gonna get so messy. Oh, technically, Freddy's feet is an isekai. Although I don't want to call it an isekai because any sphere, realm, or domain with all pertaining to it. A child's world, the world of dreams, the insect world, is classified as a world, and technically, they are going to a different world. Freddy's feet, in the episodic story, she's transported in a different world that she's unfamiliar with. So, I don't want. So technically, this can be considered as an isekai, but I don't think I want to. So, I might have to say, so this is why this doesn't help. This straight up doesn't help. At all. Because another world, the word world itself, it's so loose that a lot of things can be considered an isekai. So this is why I want to put my feet down and say they have to be, their physical body has to leave the world to count as an isekai. So because they still, it's just in their own imagination, let's say. This whole thing is just an imagination that they're thinking of. So technically this is an isekai, but this isn't an isekai. I put these as I don't know, okay? I don't know. Because I don't really know if I should count dreams as another world. So this is why I don't know. I just want to put that out there because it's confusing, okay? It's very confusing if you actually dive deep into it. And let's just calm down. Let's just talk about Zero no Sakaima. That's a word. That's a sentence I was not prepared myself to say. So I think I just want to get out of this area and just make myself a little bit easier. This is just shows I want to say that are isekai, but people just don't think they don't really think about them being isekai. Zero no Sakaima is a very good example because came out in 2006. It's before the isekai boom. But this is definitely an isekai because this character got transported to a different world that they are not familiar with. They just went to a portal and now they can't get back. That is definitely an isekai. And this is where I have a problem with frequently as a modifier in it, just because this is more of a trope than an actual thing that is required for an isekai. Because this guy is definitely has nothing. He definitely does not have any powers apart from that weird sword thing. Either way, it's a bad show, so like it doesn't defend anything. Esclafone, that's definitely an isekai. It's just a 15-year-old girl going to a different world. It's before isekai like genre gets really, they really talk about isekai. Like this is before isekai genre was really an isekai genre. Mato Sei no Slave. It's from our time, 2024. But people don't really think about this as an isekai, but technically they went to a different world full of demons. And technically, the main character gets transported to that world. So technically this is an isekai. But people don't classify it as an isekai just because it doesn't feel like an isekai. You know? People think isekai... When people think of isekai, they already have a set image of isekai. What I'm showing with those things right now, that isekai genre is not what you think. Because a Minecraft movie is an isekai if you think about this. Because technically, they get transported to a different world, aka a Minecraft world, that is completely different from their regular world. And people who say that it isn't have to remember, another world featuring a protagonist who is transported to or reincarnated to a different, strange, or unfamiliar world. This is the most important part. Different, strange, or unfamiliar world. And people who are still fighting on it, by the way, I know people will still fight on it. Explain this. Isekai, their cheat skill. In this story, I've seen this, so I do know about this one. This guy technically does transport goes to a gate to go to a different world, but he can go back and forwards from that world. I think that's an isekai. Same as Isekai Shokudo, restaurant in another world. It has isekai in the name. The restaurant itself just transported to different worlds where different fantasy characters go in to eat. This is technically an isekai. And people don't think about it because they already have a set in stone what they think an isekai is. Like, most people think an isekai is a person gets transported to a different world, they get a harem, they become the most overpowered thing in the world, and they think that's an isekai. But isekai genre itself is a lot more diverse than what your thoughts on it. Because right now, you're not really talking about the genre, you're talking about tropes. So, yeah. Stranger Things I put in there as well. That is an isekai. I haven't seen Stranger Things, but I know they go to a different world that's completely different from what they're used to. That's an isekai. Star vs. the Force of the Evil. I brought this up. This is also an isekai. People don't think about it, but this is definitely an isekai. I'm not going to show it, but in the intro, I might as well sing it. Like, in the intro, it explains everything that makes it a isekai. Like, I ain't from around here. I'm from another dimension. It's gonna get a little weird. It's gonna get a little wild. Ba 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 ba. I don't know why I'm getting into it, but like, yeah. This is technically an isekai because she's going to a different world that she's unfamiliar with. Something, although at the end, I'm not going to talk about the ending. It's messy. Although people might just say, but she's not really stuck in another world. Isekai, they have to be trapped in it, right? Refer to this one and this thing I said before. They don't have to be stuck in another world. They just have to be in another world. So, Star using her dimensional scissors to go all around to different worlds is technically an isekai. So there isn't a way. It's an isekai that people don't think of. Because people don't people just associate things easy, like so fast, but they don't really. They only know what they see. So when people see those shows, this is what they think of as an isekai. Those three right here. But Starfest as the Force of Evil is another take on how to use an isekai genre. I feel like I'm just going to go all around in a circle, so I might as well move on. But you kind of get the point. These are definitely isekais. Okay, and this is going to be a weird one, because these two are isekais, okay? But I want to mention those two because these are a weird isekai, because this kind of, although it has some isekai tropes that people are used to, it kind of a weird way to explain it. For example, this guy, the main character, I can't remember his name, he gets transported to a different world. He becomes a hero. That's an isekai part. Then he gets transported back to his world. And I'm not talking, and it's focused on him, on that, him already having all these powers in his own world. But what makes this an isekai is, although it is the same world he's familiar with, there are some things that completely change, and you realize, like, pretty early on that he's not really in his old world anymore. Although it looks similar, it isn't. So this is an isekai because he's now in a world where it seems familiar with, but it isn't. So this is an isekai. This right here, I want to mention, he goes to 100 different worlds. He gets banished from the first one, then he gets transported to a different place. This is why I want to mention this, because it's a time loop slash isekai genre slash new game plus slash JRPG. It's very weird. Basically, I count this as an isekai because he's going to different worlds to help the characters defeat the demon lord. It has a lot of isekai elements, blah 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 blah. But he definitely goes to 100 different worlds. That's an isekai. I want to mention those ones because these are definitely, if you read the story, you kind of understand that, yeah, this is an isekai, but it breaks off from what you think an isekai genre can be. They're not the best written, but it's not, they don't get transported, like for this one, he's not getting transported to a fantasy world slash science fiction world. He's just transported into a alternate dimension version of his world. While this one, he's just going back to his world, back to each and every world he's been to. I need to read this again, honestly. This one I had a little bit of trouble with, but he technically, it's in this guy. Just say this in this guy. I'm just going all over the place. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired right now. And also, I'm trying to stall because this is where everything's gonna get worse and worse. Dragon Tales is an isekai. You see what I mean? Oh, I don't want to say. This whole thing, they pick up a dragon scale. Both of them. Dragons start flying across. They get transported to a land of dragons. That's an isekai. That is straight up an isekai. Dragon Tales, it's an isekai. You see, what people are familiar with is scratching the surface of what an isekai is. Because Dragon Tales is an isekai. Because they get transported to a different world. Different from what they consider as a planet. something they can say it's unfamiliar, or strange, or different. Let's move on. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is where you gets worse and worse. This is not really an isekai, okay? But it has isekai characters. Different Spider-Man from different worlds going to this place, some place that seems familiar, but is completely different. Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel is an isekai. This is the way I'm bringing up to. People who hate isekai, don't think about it. He's traveling across multiverses, places that are different, strange, or unfamiliar. Miles Morales goes to a different dimension where it's an Indian place where it's completely different from his own world. He goes to a sci-fi place that is completely different from his own world. This is an isekai through and through because Miles Morales, the main character, travels to a different place. And people say isekai is a bad genre because they don't think. They see one thing. They see the tiny bit of the surface of an isekai. And they automatically assume the entire genre is bad. But look at this. Into the Spider-Verse. It's not. It's one. Where is it? Across the Spider-Verse. This is the isekai. Oscar nominated. It got nominated and people loved it. People loved Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But they don't know that it is an isekai. And said, oh, is that all? Is that all you got? But technically, what you're saying is, none of the isekai content never got an Oscar win. Coco! An aspiring musician, Miguel, confronts his family ancestral ban on music, enters the land of the dead to find his great-grandfather's a legendary singer. This is an isekai. And I know people loved it. Coco's in the sky because he goes to a completely different, unfamiliar world. The land of the dead. Something completely different from his world. That's an isekai. People might say, oh, but it's still in the same universe. That's an isekai. That's not an isekai. Look at another one. Earth or globe considered a planet. Earth part of it. Within blah blah blah. That's basically what a world is. What I'm trying to say is, there's multiple ways to explain the world, but world is generally some place where everybody lived in it. Let's just go meaning. Let's make it easier. The Earth together, all of its countries, people, particular region. I'm not going to talk about that one yet. Basically, a group of people living in the same place. That's basically what a world is. Because there's a lot of information. And I is saying that people from Miguel, I is saying his world is the same as the land of the dead. I is saying they share the same world. They know. It's not like Harry Potter where it's just hidden. It's just completely different areas. They're completely different places. So Coco, it's an isekai. I'm gonna just calm down a little bit. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is an isekai, and I don't think that's really a controversial thing. They go to different dimensions, blah blah blah. This is where I'm gonna get in trouble. This is where I'm gonna get even more in trouble. As you can see, Avatar: The Last Airbender. The whole show isn't an isekai, and that's why I'm gonna say this. But they use the isekai genre in one of the episodes. Or two of the episodes. Let me get it up for you. I wish they showed it. Let's just go season 1. Damn. I think I just remembered it wrong. I think I remember it wrong, but I do not remember this. One episode in general. There it is. This is an isekai. So Avatar uses isekai genre to elevate the story. So are you saying that isekai genre is bad in general? Because Aang travels to a spirit world, a different alternate world from his own, where spirits roam around, where not a lot of people can enter it, but he just gets transported to a parallel world, different, strange, or unfamiliar from what he knows. So, one of the best shows use isekai genre to elevate the story, and honestly, it's amazing. It's completely different. I remember the really creepy no-face guy, but it's completely different from what he is used to seeing, because it's a parallel world. It's a different world he's not familiar with. Hellraiser. This is not what people think. Pinhead, the main antagonist, is from a different world that people are not familiar with. This is not an isekai story, but this character himself is an isekai antagonist, because he traveled to this world to kill people. That's like a very simplification to say talking about this. But this technically has isekai elements because the main villain is from a different world. Unlike another horror film, A Nightmare on Elm Street, that isn't an isekai because the main villain just comes back to life to haunt people. He's also this Freddy Krueger, that guy. He's already from this world, so I wouldn't say this is an isekai. Although he travels like through dreams, he's already from this world, so he's not an isekai protagonist. But antagonist. But this is an isekai character, so people can use isekai in different ways. Oh, this is funny. Even right underneath your skin, people use isekai. One of the most famous generic series that people know. Like, this is like a normie thing. Call of Duty, Black Ops 3. Why am I mentioning this? Black Ops Zombies storyline. And specifically Black Ops 3. Because of the Aether storyline. The multiverse, also known blah 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 blah. Throughout the Aether story of zombies, it's the characters, Rick Toffin, I don't remember all 4 names, that's on me honestly. But those 4 characters, soldiers, goes to different places and timelines. Unfamiliar, strange, I would say different worlds that's unfamiliar to them. Like, people who play, let's say, sorry, I'm just thinking about, okay, yeah, got one. I was just choosing a map. This is an isekai. That's probably the worst example to start first. Okay, let me just choose a different one. What's the Rising Drag? I don't know why. The Rising Drag, that's like the better example for this one. Technically, the 4 characters you're playing aren't actually from in this place. Like, the 4 characters you play, technically they're in a different world, a different dimension from what they are from. And they try to kill, damn it. I don't remember names, man. That's on me. But it's completely different from what they used to. Why also I have to go back to this one, Origins. Why I mentioned this one is they in the game, they do actually go to the crazy place, which is a different world from the place you're playing. So this is technically an isekai map, but I'm not gonna go deep into it. But the Rising Drag, the entire story of Black Ops 3 for like the Aether story is an isekai because it's all 4 characters going to a different dimension just to kill their selves, which is honestly, Black Ops 3 in general is just is a very confusing storyline, and you need to legit watch like a 3-hour video on it. But by definition, they do go to a different world. So Black Ops 3 Zombies is an isekai. And this is where I'm going to lose everybody. Although I already lost a lot of people from like beforehand. Guardians of the Galaxy! Woo! My favorite isekai! Woo! I love Guardians of the Galaxy. People are going to hate me for saying this. But by definition, this is an isekai. Because Peter Quill he gets transported to a different world that is unfamiliar to him. And people say, no, they're in the same world! They're in the same world! But not really, because Earth in this world is separate from space. So Peter Quill, when he's there, he didn't know about outer worlds. He didn't know that stuff. He was transported by Yondu to a different, separate world, so far off that he cannot go back for so long. That sounds like an isekai. Peter Quill, a guy transported to a different, unfamiliar world. So, Guardians of the Galaxy is an isekai. I'm just gonna I made a pause because I want people to freak out. I know people will freak out and seeing this. Star Wars is an isekai. Also, May the 4th. Funny. I think space travel is an isekai. Any like space travel / isekai is the same thing. Because it is the characters going to a different, unfamiliar world. Dictionary word. The Earth or globe considered as a planet is a world. So going to a different planet is a different world. Anakin Skywalker was a kid who lived in Taboo. And he got transported to a different world that he's unfamiliar with to become a Jedi. It's a different world from what he used to. Luke Skywalker. He didn't know anything about Jedis and stuff until he went to a different world where he learned more about it. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's Star Wars. Anytime they go to a different world that I'm familiar with is an isekai. Because by definition, the direct translation is another world. And this is what I mean by controversial. Because isekai, the genre itself, it's so loose. Because the word world is so loose. Because it could be a child's world. A child's mind could be a different world. A planet could be a different world. A multiverse could be a different world. Like, that could be considered a world. Like a whole multiverse could be considered a world. A planet could be considered a world. A country can be considered a world. Like, are you saying that we, like, America, live in the same world? We have the same thing that we know. Do you think North Korea I don't know why. I was just struggling. I just said North Korea. But what I'm trying to say is, do you think we live in the same world, by definition, as North Korea? Because technically, a world can be a country. I think I should just go here. This is where I want to say. A particular region or group of countries. That is considered a world. So technically, North Korea is a different world because they're from a different place that we are unfamiliar, different, or strange from what we know. So this is why I think Guardians of the Galaxy is an isekai. Star Wars is an isekai because they're going to different worlds. A other world, you can say. Thor is an isekai. And whoops, because he goes to a different world unfamiliar from what he knows. And people might say, but they still connected to the same universe. The same universe is technically means they live in the same world. I don't think so. If by definition, this I'm considering if I should say or not. Yeah, no, screw it. By definition, if I say this, if they live in the same universe, every single thing I mention in this video isn't an isekai. Mushoku Tensei isn't an isekai. Re:Zero isn't an isekai. Eminence in Shadow isn't an isekai. And you might ask why. Because technically, the entire fiction of a world is the same place, same world. Because people can consider fiction as the same world. So we're saying Across the Spider-Verse isn't an isekai, because although he goes to a different unfamiliar world, technically they all share the same fiction. So this is an isekai. He just transported to a different place, the same world, but it's kind of a little bit unfamiliar. Mushoku Tensei. Technically, his real world that he was originally with, and and the new world, fantasy world, is in the same fiction. And how do we know if Re:Zero, the world of Re:Zero, isn't a far-off place in the planet as a planet from where Subaru is from? So, what if? And this is not being mentioned. Nobody talked about this because people don't. Because the creator didn't really write this through. They never really talked about if the place where Subaru just went to is the same universe as his original one. They might be super far away. So technically, if that's the case, since it's not been said, Re:Zero isn't an isekai. And do you want to tell me straight in my face, Re:Zero isn't an isekai? And people might just go back and say, but it has to be strange, different, and unfamiliar. So are you saying, love comic, manga, blah, 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 blah. Since I entered the world of romantic comedy manga, I do my best to make the losing hero happy. You're saying this isn't an isekai. Although he gets reincarnated to a different world. Although almost every single thing is exactly the same. But there's new characters. It is not from his original world. You're saying this is an isekai. He goes to a different place. Everything is a complete same, but there's new people that he's not familiar with. If these two are an isekai, then Guardians of the Galaxy is isekai. Because he's going to a different world that that is strange, different, and unfamiliar. And I can say, Galaxy 2, they mentioned that they are very far apart from each other, especially in where Ego was from where they are, because they had to take 700 dimensional jumps. I mean, space jumps, and that's so far, and apparently it's unhealthy for a person to take at least 5 space jumps. So, since they're pretty far from each other, completely far from each other, are you saying they live in the same world? Ben 10 Omniverse is an isekai. No Man's Sky is an isekai. God of War is an isekai. Including the game. I'm talking about 2018 version. He goes to different realms. That are completely different, strange, unfamiliar. I think he's probably not. He's unfamiliar with this one, and is definitely strange, definitely different. So technically, God of War 2018 is an isekai, and people say, "But the North mythology, this is the world. This is the world they're talking about. Although it's different realms, technically, as a whole, they're the same world because they live in this thing." Blah 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 blah. I don't know. I don't know too much about Norse mythology. If that's the case, Kratos is an isekai protagonist because he's not from Norse mythology. He's from Greek mythology. So are you saying that Kratos isn't an isekai protagonist? That we're playing a same character transporting to a different unfamiliar world is not an isekai. Because by definition, isekai means another world. And Kratos is definitely not in the same world as he's used to. And Norse mythology and Greek mythology are completely different things. So, God of War is an isekai. And he's still trying to fight against it. You're still trying to fight against it and saying that they have to be in a different, completely different place. They have to be in a different multiverse, different dimension. Somewhere that is completely different. By technicality, from what I said, none of them are isekais. And the only true isekai, or one of the few isekais, is DBD. Dead by Daylight. If you try to fight me against it, then by technicality, DBD is an isekai. Because they bring different killers, different survivors to a new place from different fiction. This is a proper isekai then. If you say that I am wrong, everything I say is completely wrong, then by definition, they have to be in different fiction to be considered as an isekai. They're going to have to be different fiction, going to a new fiction to be considered as an isekai. So, Dead by Daylight is an isekai. So, any crossover is an isekai. Like Jimmy and Timmy Power Hour. That's an isekai. Because there's two different fictions crossing over. And you might say, but what about iCarly Victorious crossover special? Then if you say that, that's an isekai. Well, you stop. That'd be crazy, okay? Although they're different fiction, blah 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 blah, They're still made by the same person, and they both inhabit the same world. So technically, this crossover is not a fiction. It's just a normal crossover because both of them already live in the same world, but they just have different stories. So don't be crazy. This is an isekai crossover. This isn't. This is a isekai crossover, but this isn't. And this is why I say this. Isekai genre isn't a bad genre. Oversaturated with bad ones, yes. By definition, isekai isn't a bad genre. Because it's just a genre saying another world. Mishandled, yes. Bad, no. But the reason why I made this video is because people don't understand what genre means. Genre can't be bad. It's just a category that says something. They have a category that focuses on a specific topic. Are you gonna say horror is a bad genre? Although, I know there's a lot of bad horror movies. But there's also really good ones as well that tackles really interesting concepts. Are you gonna say horror is a bad genre? If you think the same thing, then you would say isekai isn't a bad genre because it just means another world. It doesn't, and what everything you think about isekai genre, that's tropes in isekai, but it doesn't define isekai itself, because by definition, isekai is when someone is transported to or reincarnated in a different, strange, or unfamiliar world. What you guys are thinking when you think about isekai is Japanese literature that uses isekai in a self-insert power fantasy world. I mean, you're basically thinking about power fantasy self-inserts. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Like, 成長スキル温泉創造で雪無理春も傷つくまで編成が届くことら即どれの異世界転生赤字旅館再建計画 That is a self-insert power fantasy. That's what you're thinking. You hate that genre. But you don't hate isekai. And if you try to fight me against it and saying that isekai is only for power fantasy self-inserts, then you have to consider Caillou as an isekai. Because Caillou, by the story, is a self-insert power fantasy. And this is a controversial one. Caillou is a self-insert power fantasy because this guy is a little brat who has gotten away with every single behavior he has done and doesn't properly learn. He's a little brat, whiny brat, and he's meant to be for little kids to self-insert so they can justify themselves or they can project themselves as a little brat. Because they want to be a little brat. They want to be him. They want to get away with everything. This is a power fantasy. Self-insert, okay? So what I'm trying to say in total is that isekai is a mishandled genre. Infestated with a lot of self-insert power fantasies that doesn't actually explore the isekai genre in a very unique or creative way. So this is so the genre itself isn't bad, but the people who write it make it seem like it's bad. Anyway, thank you for listening for my talk. I think I just spewed out things that completely just nonsensical. But in total, I do actually believe most of the things I say. I do believe that Guardians of the Galaxy is a isekai just because of the definition of another world. So yeah. Please just fight against me. I want to see your point of view. And yeah, I'm tired. I think I spent too long talking about isekai.